Okay, so let me get this straight. For 8 straight years, Republicans said Obama's Iran deal was the worst diplomatic deal in American history. Kerry was called a traitor. The deal was called appeasement. Iran got everything, America got nothing. That was the line. So in 2026, Trump signs a Memorandum of Understanding with Iran. 3 pages. Obama's deal was 159. Trump's version, according to former CIA Director John Brennan, hands Iran immediate oil waivers and hundreds of billions in funding, without capping ballistic missiles, without long-term enrichment limits, without international verification. 3 pages versus 159. I could not write this if I tried. And I write commentary for a living. We're looking at clips from MS Now's The Weekend. Former CIA Director John Brennan, staff writer Vivian Salama, and retired Admiral John Kirby, breaking this down in real time. Watch for exactly what this deal gives away versus what it actually locks down. Hit subscribe. Let's get into it.
Between the JCPOA, or the similarities between the JCPOA and this 3 pages of a Memorandum of Understanding. The JCPOA 2015, you have Iran commits to no nuclear weapons and restrictions. The MOU, Iran commits to no nuclear weapons, 60-day talks for specifics on enrichment and accepts monitoring. Sanctions phased in after verification for the JCPOA. Immediate waivers for oil exports, negotiated final sanctions for the Iran deal that Trump has. No funding for economic development in the JCPOA. $300 billion for economic development with regional partners in the Trump-Iran deal. The JCPOA was negotiated with China, France, Germany, Russia, UK, and the EU. This current agreement is a U.S.-Iran bilateral agreement. The pages, which I think is very important because more pages mean more negotiations happen and went back and forth. 159 for the JCPOA, 14 paragraphs and 3 pages for this. John Brennan, this feels to a lot of people as, okay, it's going to be a jumping off point. But all of the things that they are still fighting about, nothing has changed about those things. What is the big difference between what we have right now and the JCPOA?
All right, so let's actually unpack what just happened. Brennan's not speculating. He ran the CIA. The JCPOA was 159 pages, multilateral, internationally verified. Iran had to reduce its enriched uranium stockpile by 98%. Inspectors had physical access to nuclear sites. That is documented. Trump's MOU is 3 pages. And per Brennan, it hands Iran immediate oil waivers and hundreds of billions in economic access, without locking down ballistic missiles, without verified long-term enrichment caps. Think about that for a second. The entire Republican argument against Obama's deal was that it was too soft, too short, and too easy on Iran. The replacement is literally shorter, gives more money faster, and skips the verification entirely. That's not spin. That is the document count. Full stop.
Because of concerns that they've had from the get-go that the president was going to feel a lot of political pressure to come to a bad deal. Actually, our colleague David Rohde, I should read some of his reporting, too, that encapsulates this. Officials in Persian Gulf countries criticized the deal as well, with a senior official from the UAE describing the mood as complete disappointment. Can you talk about why that is and why now the president is just saying that at the end of the day, now after saying this was a huge issue, that the ballistic missile aspect of this no longer matters?
Let's take viewers back to February, where remember February?
Sort of.
Not really. But I do remember that the president was trying to rally Gulf allies to support him in this war. And not only did they say they did not want to take part in the war, they didn't want the U.S. to use the bases that they host in their countries, U.S. bases, as launching points for this. They even didn't want to give flyover rights for military planes in this war because they did not want to see themselves, they didn't want to be complicit. They felt like the situation was stable. It wasn't ideal, but it was stable. No one was launching bombs at each other, and they were okay with that. And they knew that immediately, if they launched war, the Strait would be weaponized, right, and their countries would be the first line of attack. And they were.
So let me make sure the math is clear here. The UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait. These aren't random critics. These are America's Gulf partners, the countries Trump personally visited in 2017, promising to be the strongest security ally they'd ever had. They are now expressing deep disappointment about this deal. And Netanyahu, per U.S. intelligence reports, is under intense domestic pressure to sustain his military offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon, which directly threatens to blow up the diplomatic track Trump is trying to build in Switzerland. So your two biggest regional allies are either formally opposed to this deal or actively running a military campaign that undermines it, like trying to negotiate a ceasefire while your co-signer is bombing the other side's delegation hotel. That is the coalition situation on the ground right now. That's not debatable. It's documented.
If we're going to do this, we're going to have a critical level of political leadership at the top, and then obviously the second we need to stand the ground. What's I like to say is what appears to be a beautiful place. I can only be there for a day or two. I think we're going to hopefully make progress on the nuclear issue, make progress on the Lebanon ceasefire issue. Those are the two big things that I think we're going to be focused on. I'm sure the Iranians are going to have issues they'd like to discuss as well.
Well, Eamon, the second you start to feel hopeful that maybe the war is over and the world economy is going to recover and perhaps people in the region will start having electricity at 24 hours a day.
It is a mess.
Yes.
I mean, I think the only word I can think of to describe the situation that we're in is a complete mess. There's probably a stronger word that I can use, but I can't use it. I can't use it on the air. But the reality of the situation, and you get a glimpse of that in the comments that J.D. Vance made just an hour or so ago. The two issues that are crystallizing right now that are really breaking down is, one, we can't agree on what is actually happening on the ground. The military says the Straits of Hormuz are open. Iran says it's closed, right? So put that on the side. We don't even know what the reality is on the situation. It's depending on who you want to believe and what is actually playing. But more importantly, what you're seeing there is that the vice president is going to Switzerland.
Okay, so J.D. Vance just left for Switzerland with Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff to iron out the technical framework on this deal. Let me give you the full picture of what they're walking into. This conflict has cost the U.S. economy an estimated $132 billion. Thousands of casualties across American, Israeli, Iranian, and Lebanese sides. And the team doing the technical negotiating includes Jared Kushner, whose private equity firm received a $2 billion investment from a Saudi sovereign wealth fund after he left the White House, and Steve Witkoff, a commercial real estate developer. These are the people drafting technical frameworks on nuclear enrichment and ballistic missiles. Vance delivers prepared remarks about critical negotiations and flies out. No mention of the $132 billion economic toll. No mention of the credential gap on the technical side. But hey, the departure optics were clean. Sure.
Joining me now, we have retired Admiral John Kirby, MS Now national security analyst, who's a former spokesperson at the Pentagon, State Department, and the White House. Admiral, it's awfully good to have you on the show here. So your name was invoked earlier in a conversation that I had with our colleague David Rode. And it was suggested that you had verified, and I'd like you just to tell what you know, that Iran had been sending out, I guess, radio calls to ships that were trying to transverse the strait and saying, it's closed. You may not do this. Is that true? And how did they follow that up, if at all?
Yeah, so far what I've been able to gather is that the only harassment that ships have been having as the ships have been transiting, including some 50 today, there's been some radio harassment where the Iranians would get on the radio and tell them it's not safe to go, don't pass, don't do this. They're still trying to extract some sort of fees from ships as they pass, but they are going through safely and with overwatch by the U.S. military on a southern route. If you're looking at that map that you're showing right now, Alex, you'll see that tip of land there coming out from Oman on the very southern part of the strait. You can see all those ships are kind of collected around that area. That's the route by which they're going through the strait, right around that little tip there.
Here's where we zoom out. This is not really about Obama versus Trump on Iran. It is about a pattern that only ever runs in one direction. When the other side negotiates with Iran, it is treasonous appeasement. When your side does it, it is bold deal-making. The JCPOA got torn up in 2018, unilaterally, over the objections of every European partner, because the argument was it was weak, short, and insufficiently verified. The replacement, 6 years later, is 3 pages, skips verification, skips ballistic missile caps, and is opposed by Gulf allies and Israel. And the stakes are not abstract. The Strait of Hormuz handles roughly 20% of the world's oil supply. Any disruption hits your gas prices, your supply chains, your markets within days, not months. Admiral Kirby just confirmed Iran's total closure claim is not accurate. Shipping is moving via alternative southern routes protected by the U.S. Navy. But the threat alone moves oil futures. So here's the line if someone brings this up. Obama's deal was 159 pages, multilateral, verified, and got called treason. Trump's deal is 3 pages, skips verification, gives more money up front, and is opposed by our own allies. That is not a political opinion. That is the document count. Hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to see it. I'll catch you in the next one.